Hey you. um, so in this video, I'm ranking the most charismatic signs, as you can see. I did want to say that I do think this is a little bit subjective. This is one of those beauty is in the eye of the beholder situations. So I will do my best to be relatively objective, but at the same time, like, depending on your personality and what you enjoy and how you expect interactions to go, you could argue that any sign is charismatic. It kind of just depends. Each sign has their own sort of language, so to speak. By the way, as well, when I'm doing these videos, don't just assume I'm talking about sun signs. You can definitely look at it this way, but I'm talking about the signs in general. So you can apply this to other placements as well, not just the sun. But anyway, I will explain my reasoning as we go through this. And yeah, let's get into it. And alphabetical order, let's see what sign is most charismatic, what signs are least charismatic. But generally speaking, charismatic, it means charming. It means someone that makes other people feel good about themselves. It's going to be a likable energy, a popular sign. So starting out with Aquarius, I do think Aquarius is going to be on the less charismatic side of things. Aquarius is one of those signs that really values transparency, and they want like the cold hard truth, the cold hard facts, reality. They're a very stoic sign. So yeah, that's great. It's great to value authenticity. I do too, to be honest. I'm kind of on that level as well. But that does come at the cost of maybe not always being likable. This is actually something I've been struggling with lately. I can be a little bit overly honest at times. I think reality itself is, harsh at times. We may not always like reality, especially certain personalities are not always at peace with reality as other signs. So what's interesting is I think Aquarius often comes across condescending even though they're actually very accepting. So for example, like Aquarius may be very observant. They may say like, "Oh, I noticed that you're late a lot." And that sounds like a criticism. Maybe the Aquarius is totally fine with it, though. They're like, no, it's totally fine. I don't have a problem with that. I'm just saying, that's just reality. That's just how it is. I'm at peace with it. But they're not realizing, okay, just because you're at peace with it, other people have insecurities. They're maybe not as at peace with reality as you are. Does that make sense? Like, I run into that problem as well. So I don't know if you relate. But anyway, my point is Aquarius is so realistic, so straightforward. They can be very blunt, very dry. They do have a deep mental empathy, but they're not so skilled when it comes to emotional empathy, I don't think. So I'm going to say, honestly, I think this is one of the coldest signs. It was actually just ranked in a recent poll I did as the coldest sign. I think Aquarius can be harsh. I don't think they mean to necessarily, but yeah, I actually think Aquarius is one of the least charismatic signs now that I think about it. Next is Aries. So I personally find Aries to be one of among the most charismatic, most charming signs. I don't think everyone else does though to the same extent that I do. I think part of that is personal bias. I enjoy personalities that are more outgoing, more to the point, straightforward. So I personally enjoy that about Aries. But I can definitely see how Aries can be too energetic, too in your face. Aries can say things that maybe not everyone wants to hear. They are one of the more direct signs. But on the other hand, Aries can be very generous with their energy. If we are looking at sun signs, Sun is exalted in Aries. So people with Sun and Aries in particular really shine. They really put themselves out there, and they can be very charming, in my opinion. They have a sort of youthfulness, and they just their sheer energy, their optimism, I think is relatable for everyone. That's why so many people with major placements in Aries are famous actors or celebrities. We kind of relate to them on some level. So I would argue they're one of the more charismatic signs. I'm going to put them in the. I don't know if pleasant and polite are necessarily the best words for Aries. I think Aries is more kind of crass and in your face. But I would definitely put them at the second tier. They can be very offensive. They are one of the most offensive signs. So that is true. But at the same time, I don't know. I'd still argue they're one of the more charismatic ones. I think you could definitely argue for them to be in like the average. You could even argue for them to be less than average, but I'm this. All I have is my own opinions. We are all subjective on some level, so I admit some of these videos may have some subjectivity in them, but I would rank them as being there. I think Aries can be very charming. Let me know your experience. Next is Cancer. So this one's interesting. Cancer, this is actually kind of tough. I think Cancer can be very charismatic. They can be so nurturing, especially for those that are kind of like weak or shy or, disadvantaged in some kind of way. I think they may really warm up to Cancer because, Cancer enjoys being sort of nurturing and having that close connection. But Cancer is also very shy. It can be a kind of timid sign, so they can, sort of pull back and put up that sort of shell, right? Since they are the crab, they're one of those invertebrates, one of those exoskeleton signs. So, so yeah, I can see, also Cancer is probably more defensive than any other sign. Maybe Scorpio might be more defensive. But even just people that are maybe being friendly and trying to get to know Cancer, Cancer does love connecting with others. I've said before that a different animal for Cancer could be the dog. Cancer is very close to Sirius, which is like the dog star. Canis Major, Canis Minor are close by the dog constellations. So I would argue Cancer is kind of like a dog. Like dogs can be shy and timid, but they're also really excited to meet people, right? That's how I see Cancer being. So what I was saying is someone being friendly with Cancer, it's very easy to kind of like, if you cross over any boundary, you may offend Cancer, and Cancer may feel like you are, be offending them, like you're attacking them. They always feel like, they're being attacked. So that can quickly, kind of make things go sideways. I forgot what else I was going to say, though. Being friendly. I think I was just gonna say, again, Cancer really does love enjoying. They 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 really enjoy connecting with other people as well. I've been so tongue tied this last month or so. I apologize. I think overall, I'm gonna put them in the average category. Just that level of emotion. I think that, as usual, the emotion with Cancer is key. That emotion makes them. It does make them charming. Actually, I'm kind of thinking more now. There is this whole dynamic with Cancer where they are approachable. Like, they are easy to connect with. They're easy to approach. We feel safe with Cancer, and that sometimes that's true, sometimes it's not. But, many people that have major Cancer placements, like, they're used to people coming up to them and saying, "Oh, I know you from somewhere." Like, we all think Cancer is so familiar, even though, we may not actually know them. So, okay, that being said, I'm gonna put them in the pleasant category. I think they are one of the more charismatic signs, but yeah, that heavy emotion can kind of go either way. We can relate to that emotion with them, and it's so relatable. I think Cancer can also be a very humorous sign, but on the other hand, they can be very emotional. They can be very guarded and defensive as well. Next is Capricorn. So Capricorn can have a great sense of humor, kind of a dry or dark sense of humor, maybe sarcastic. But Capricorn is also very dry. It's another sign that's ruled by Saturn, kind of like Aquarius. And, Capricorn is, I think, one of these signs that can be cold, dry, blunt, harsh. It's another very stoic sign. That's where you really see the energy of Saturn here. So I would say this is one of the least charismatic signs. They're not necessarily charming. I think signs that are charming, I don't know if this is actually true. I'm kind of feeling it out. I'm thinking about it. But an idea that I'm thinking about is I have this theory that signs that are more immersed in the immediate moment and more maybe spontaneous, those are going to be the more charismatic signs. I think the signs more focused on the very long term are going to be less charismatic. And that's because, like Aquarius and Capricorn, it's not that they don't care how you feel. It's just that they want the cold hard truth, and so they kind of assume that everyone else does too. Honestly, I relate to that. That's kind of how I am. Like, I want to know reality. I want to know how things are. So I feel like it's my duty to be fully truthful to other people, even if it's not always what they want to hear, right? And it's just about a different perspective. I think Aries and Cancer, for example, they more want to be comfortable in the immediate moment. There's certain signs that would rather be diplomatic rather than be so cold and harsh, because they don't want to look at the coldest, harshest part of reality either. I don't know. That's the best way. I haven't thought a lot about this, so that idea is not like fully baked yet, but those are kind of my thoughts so far. Next is Gemini. So I don't know why I feel like many people in astrology say that Gemini is so socially intelligent, which is true, but people paint Gemini as like, the ultimate person when it comes to interactions and I don't. That hasn't been my experience as someone with major Gemini placements myself, and observing. Of course, I look up literally anyone, any person I've ever known. I look up their chart if I can get a hold of their information. So any sign. I've known many people who have major placements in Gemini as well as any sign, and I mean, they definitely are very socially intelligent and they're very focused on other people, but I think sometimes they can be maybe too socially intelligent. Like, just because you're socially intelligent doesn't mean that you're charismatic. It actually doesn't even mean that you're good at interacting with other people. Just because you're constantly thinking about psychology and analyzing people, that can actually make it more awkward to interact with others. And I think that's true here. Gemini is a very nervous sign. It's very flighty, and Gemini can be awkward. Gemini is also ruled by Mercury, so it's constantly analyzing, constantly overthinking. I think that can take away from some of their charming aspects. Gemini can be fun, funny, silly, but Gemini is a weird energy, though. It's a complicated energy, right? And I think the more charismatic signs are going to be more simple, generally speaking. If you're really complicated and it takes a long time to get to know you, that's going to take away from your charisma, if that makes sense. I think, you could say that they have a sort of quirky charm to them. But yeah, I'd say tactless. I think that's a good word for Gemini. They kind of just, they don't have tact. Like, they don't have like plan or strategy necessarily. They usually prefer to just kind of just wing it and just be honest and be silly and quirky. And I love that. I think that's a lot of fun. I am that way myself, but would I rank that as charismatic? No. I'm not going to put them in the bottom tier, though, because I don't think Gemini is completely just, belligerently like blunt or cold. Gemini is, very aware of other people, so they do want to fit in, I think. But again, it can be awkward. So yeah, it's not that Gemini is like super unpleasant to deal with necessarily, generally speaking. But I do think they can be a little awkward or a little bit hard to understand. All right, now we have Leo. So Leo, I'm gonna say, is the most charming so far. Leo is sun energy. It's warm, it's vibrant. Can Leo be cold? Yes. We've talked about that in the comments in some of my polls recently. Leo can be harsh. They can be kind of a tyrant. They can be self-centered. But I think Leo also has a very generous side. Leo is like the counselor sign or the cheerleader sign, right? It's the energy that pumps us all up. More people are born with Leo sun than most other sun signs. And I think that's for a reason. I think we need that energy. Sun is in domicile in Leo. And again, I'm not just talking about the sun. You can apply this to other planets as well. But the sun is part of it. Sun is in domicile in Leo. So that's where, people that have sun in Leo, they are very easily accepted, generally speaking. They're easily received, well received. They are very kind of simple, straightforward, to the point. They tend to be proud. I think that Leo is the most proud sign. So yeah, you kind of have all the ingredients, to make this very charming energy, I think, for sure. Libra. All right, another slam dunk. It's fun having back-to-back signs I can put at the top of the chart. Yeah, Libra, I would say, is potentially the most charismatic sign. That is like their whole thing. They're diplomatic. They're great at being socially graceful and, kind of, being active and engaging when it's appropriate or when it fits with other people, and then kind of pulling back. They're excellent listeners. Libra's excellent at asking questions. I actually really admire them for that. Whenever I'm talking to a Libra sun or moon or Mercury or ascendant, they're great listeners. They're great at asking questions. I feel like I kind of suck at those things. So I admire them for that. There's that saying that, the person that is asking questions, they're the one driving the conversation, right? So I think that Libra really innately understands the art of listening and asking questions. Libra's also excellent at kind of conforming to whatever energy they're around. They at least appear to have their own kind of personality, their own body, and they appear to be, just the right amount of assertive when they need to be. But ultimately, it is a chameleon sign. They're kind of matching what other energies they're around. So Libra's excellent at kind of knowing their audience. They're not going to make a really sophisticated joke if everyone's not going to understand it, and vice versa. They're not going to make a crude joke around like a really posh audience or whatever the situation is. So yeah, I would say Libra. If Libra's not charismatic, I don't know who is. Can Libra be awkward? Sure. Libra can also be extremely shy at times. Like the most shy people I've ever known had sun placements in air signs. But generally speaking, this is about as charismatic as it gets. We've got that Venus rulership, so that makes Libra pleasant to be around on a universal level. They have kind of an easygoing charisma to them. All right, Pisces. This is an interesting one. I do think Pisces is on the more charismatic side of things. Pisces is a very optimistic sign. We also have a Venus connection here too, and that is something I thought about before filming this video. Any sign with a Venus connection, I think Venus is like the best planet when it comes to charisma. Venus makes things pleasant. So if you have Venus very strong in your chart, you are pleasant. You may be physically attractive. You may be even more than that, like your energy, your vibe, your aura is attractive. And Venus is more of like the kind of laid back charisma. So the reason why I'm talking about that for Pisces, Venus rules Libra, which we just talked about, but Venus is exalted in Pisces as well. So, plus we've got that Jupiter. Jupiter is another huge planet when it comes to charisma as well, because it's another fun planet. It's another planet that makes things enjoyable, right? It's the planet of humor. So Pisces being ruled by Jupiter and having Venus being exalted there, it's what more can you want? Pisces is very relatable. They come across as innocent. It's a very warm sign. They are more emotional, which we can kind of all relate to. And I'm gonna be honest, the only reason why I think Pisces might not be the most charming is because Pisces can be a mess. Like, I'm sorry, but it's true. Many Pisces struggle with mundane reality, so they can be disorganized, cluttered. They might be late, or they're not necessarily the masters of like all these little social rules and nuances that Libra is, for instance, because Pisces and Aries, they're on a much more primal, like instinctual, soulful part of the zodiac compared to like Libra or Virgo, which are all about like knowing all these little rules and things like that. So that's the only reason why I would rank Pisces as, I do think they're one of the most pleasant and charismatic signs, but I don't want to put them on the top tier though, because there is just this like dysfunction. I know I sound really critical, but do you get what I'm saying? Like most people that have Sun or Moon in Pisces, they're kind of a mess. They're all over the place, and I love them. Don't get me wrong. Don't come for me in the comments saying you don't like Pisces, blah blah blah. It's not that I don't like them. It's just that I just think there are a couple key parts that can take away from their charisma. But generally speaking, again, it's one of the most charismatic signs. I do think they are definitely more charismatic than Aries or Cancer, though. So that's why I just bumped Aries and Cancer down. And I'm going to keep Pisces in this like 80% charismatic kind of tier. Yeah, and really, I think that fits, honestly. I think Aries and Cancer are kind of middle of the road. Like, they can be very charismatic, but they can also be off-putting, kind of just depending on the individual, the situation, etc. So I feel confident in my ranking. Next, Sagittarius. I'm gonna say that Sagittarius is among the most charming. Can you argue, Sagittarius is similar to Pisces? Sagittarius can also be a little bit messy, disorganized. That is true. I'll give you that. But Sagittarius is known for being the sign of humor, and humor is a huge part of being charismatic. You don't have to be funny to be charming, but it certainly helps, right? Sagittarius is a warm sign, very generous, very outgoing, very adventurous. It's another sign that comes across youthful, but Sagittarius can also be kind of deeply intellectual as well. They can kind of be whatever you want them to be. They're multifaceted. So I think they can actually use that multifaceted nature to appeal to everyone, to appeal to a wide audience. And they just have this like sheer optimism that I think is really fun for others to be around as well. So I would say they're among the most charming, personally. It is weird, though. They can be offensive. They can be direct. But that hasn't generally been my experience. Like, I've known many people who have Sun in Sagittarius or other Sagittarius placements, and I don't find them to be as direct as what is often said in astrology. Like, I find that they enjoy directness, they like things to be transparent, but I find them to be very kind of aware of other people. Like, they are adaptable, if that makes sense. So that's just been my personal experience. So yeah, I do. I mean, if we had to really break it down, I would say Leo and Libra would be higher. I would say it would be Libra first, then Leo, then Sagittarius. But I would include Sagittarius on that top bunk, top ranking, whatever. All right, Scorpio. And this one I feel like is one that you're really gonna fight me on. Some people out there. Um, I don't think Scorpio is charismatic at all. Can they be, sexy and powerful, mysterious, creative? They have so many talents, so many skills. Scorpio can also be really excellent at reading people and kind of, reading the room, and they can be excellent performers, musicians, DJs, etc. But all that being said, like, I do see that potential for them to be very charismatic, or to be, I think they're one of the best signs for having a strong reputation, which is kind of similar to being charming. Sort of, not really. But I do think Scorpio is one of the coldest signs, and they're very negative. They're very cynical. They're another one of these signs, kind of like Capricorn or Aquarius. All these signs at the bottom are very stoic. They just want like cold, hard reality. Like, that's what they're all about. That's what they want. They don't want the fluff, right? If I'm picturing, I get these weird images while I do these videos, but I'm picturing like a stuffed animal. Like, they don't care about the fluff and the cotton or polyester probably that's on the outside. They want to know, like, how does this machine work? Like, are there mechanical parts on the inside? Like, that's what they care about. So yeah, so that's what they give to the world as well. They're just gonna tell you exactly how it is. If you want someone that's gonna be really honest, with something, and like, sometimes we do want that. Like I want that sometimes. Like, does this shirt look good on me, for example, might be a question. I know you can't see me. I'm actually not even wearing a shirt, but that's just an example. If you ask a sign like Libra, oh, does this look good on me? They're not going to tell you no, unless they are very close to you. Even then, they probably won't. So signs at the bottom, if you really want an honest opinion, go to Capricorn, go to Aquarius, go to Scorpio. It's not necessarily a bad thing not to be charming all the time. But yeah, Scorpio, they are very cynical. Like, I've worked with a lot of Scorpios, and I've observed that they'll give you a negative opinion or criticism, even if it's not really relevant or constructive at all. They just go with, that's the truth, so that's how I see it, so that's what I'm going to say. You know what I mean? So is there value in that? Sure. But it's not charming, though, right? It's yeah, they're more serious, cynical, to the point, more blunt. But I do want to say, though, one last thing. They can have that sex appeal, though. They can, like, especially if they really feel about someone, they can kind of become whatever that person wants. So I do see that, but I'm still going to rank them as cold, least charming. All right, Taurus. So I'm going to put Taurus second tier. I feel like that's kind of a no-brainer. Taurus it's the earth sign that's ruled by Venus. So Taurus is charming in a very easygoing way. I think they're charming on a universal level. Like, everyone can kind of relate to Taurus. Taurus is also very simple energy. It's not complicated. So, we all kind of get Taurus. We understand them. We know, where we're at. We know if we're friends or not with a Taurus. So I think it's simple and kind of easy to relate to them and to understand them, which is, really nice sometimes. And again, with that Venus rulership, Taurus is charismatic in a kind of pleasant, easygoing way. This isn't an in-your-face, like, super attention-seeking charisma. This is more just like chill, laid back, grounded. I think we really enjoy that kind of grounded charisma, generally speaking. Of course, just like any of these rankings, not everyone is going to get along with every sign. It just depends on your own personal preference. But yeah, I think Taurus is the best of both worlds, because they are practical and responsible, but also they like to have a good time. They can be sensual, so they're fun, but in a responsible way, generally speaking. Lastly is Virgo. So, I'm definitely ranking them lower for sure. Either cold or tactless because okay, what I found, so I used to work at a call center where I could see the person calling in, I could see their name, where they lived, and their birthday. So, of course, being an astrologer, I always paid attention to, how the call went and at least what their sun sign was. And what I noticed was, I won't say all of it. There were three signs that I noticed patterns with in particular, Virgo, Libra, and Pisces. But the pattern I noticed with Virgo was Virgo, they can come across cold sometimes and they can be very direct. Like they're definitely not the friendliest sign, but they're by far the most polite, at least in that particular setting when it comes to like calling a call center, that is a kind of specific situation. But I did notice they are always the one that says please, thank you, etc. Even if they come across cold and unfriendly, they're still using those, polite mannerisms. So that's the only thing I see. I wouldn't call that charisma necessarily. That's kind of just like basic manners, if that makes sense. But that does make me want to put them not at the most bottom rank. Virgo does kind of fit in with these other signs. Virgo can come across cold. They want, the cold, hard reality. They can be very direct. But again, they are well mannered though. So that that's enough to bump you up one tier in my book. So yeah, and we ended up with this really nice, not a bell curve, but kind of the opposite of a bell curve. So that was nice. I of course didn't plan that at all. But yeah, I'm actually pretty confident with my rankings now that I see all of them. I think this is how it is, not just for me, but for everyone objectively as well. You can of course argue for each sign to be moved up or down a peg, but yeah, that's how I would rank the signs by most and least charismatic. So let me know what you think about my ranking. Let me know your personal experience. How do you feel about where I put your sign? I don't know. Any kind of questions or feedback you have, I'm always open, whether you want to leave a comment or email me. And as always, if you want to get a reading as well, check out my website for that too. Okay, but thanks so much for watching. Have a fantastic day.